All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 4th County Road and Bridge Assumption Study, the Technical Steering Committee. And at this time, I think everyone is present. Call the meeting to order. So disclosure of pecuniary interest, if anyone has any, please forward them through to Rebecca, I believe. And minutes from the August 13th, 2024 meeting of the committee. Is there any questions on them or business arising from them? If not, then we need a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Ina, seconded by Michelle. All in favor? Carried. Carried. Thank you. The first item, the action item, is a review of the roads being considered for assumption. And Chris, turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just take it away from here, but let me share my screen. For those of you who've been through this before, essentially what's happened is we have staff over the last 6 months or so in between everything else that's been going on have gone out and done a preliminary assessment of the roads that our partner municipalities asked to be considered for assumption into the county road network. So we have some statistics and some data for you as well as my commentary on these road sections. And the purpose of this meeting is really just to come to some consensus about which of these roads will be pushed forward to the next stage, and then some conversations about how we go about potentially adding these roads to the county road network. So I'll essentially just go through you. Everybody's got this map, just shows you we're pretty much across the board with roads in almost every municipality were asked for us to be reviewed. And I'll just go through some of our analysis of some of these roads. Before we do that, I know I'm Mr. Chair, if you give me a little bit of leeway here, I'll jump around the agenda a tiny bit, just so that the committee understands sort of what we're looking at and what we talked about in the previous meeting about exclusive, inclusive, and contributing criteria. So today we can have a discussion about when we look at our narrowed down list of roads, where these types of criteria can be finalized. So essentially, today this AADT is annual average daily traffic. So we typically will set a threshold. We'll review the roads and decide if there's a threshold by which the county wouldn't assume a road if it has less than so much traffic. So these are sort of our rules of thumb we've used in the past. Less than 1,000 would fall below a class 4 standard for maintenance. We typically stay away from those just simply because we're not sort of geared up to maintain lower volume roads. And then if it's above 2,000, it typically kicks them up to a level of maintenance where it might be more challenging for some of our local municipalities to maintain the roads to the standards required under the minimum maintenance standards regulations. And then again, we look at things like missing geographical connections are very important for us and for our residents to be able to get from one point of the county to the other. We typically want them to live about a kilometer away from or two from the county road network. So those missing geographical connections are something we talk about. The exclusive ones are more like dead end roads. If we have another road that's like right parallel to that road, we might say that what the county won't assume that. We'll maybe make some improvements to the county road to absorb some more traffic, try to divert some traffic away from those local road networks. Challenges the right of way. There's some issues where there have been in the past where the road hasn't been completely within public property, so we've stepped away from those. We do try to coordinate with local municipalities to correct those issues. It's important even for the local road to have those fixed because of liability and other things. And then what we generally talk about is the contributing, which is sort of where we'll get to today. A lot of the roads you'll see today are boundary roads, either boundary roads between our local municipalities or boundary roads between the county and our neighboring municipal partners. And then sometimes we talk a little bit about areas where we might expect a consistent change in the traffic volume. There's some other things we can talk about, EDRs and stuff like that. I listed our last year's per kilometer maintenance estimate for what we had for a year end. It's probably close to within, we might tickle $10,000 a kilometer. We haven't gotten there yet, but the 9,994. When this committee in the past has move forward with the uploading of roads into the county road network. In order to make it cost neutral for the county, we asked local municipalities to contribute 1 year's worth of road maintenance costs to the county. So it would, and again, the locals probably would have a similar scope of number. It wouldn't be out by a factor of 10 or anything. It'd, sort of be in that range. So it should be neutral for both sides of the equation. We can, of course, dive into that and make some changes if necessary. So I'm just going to walk through these, and please stop me, raise your hand, just shout at me if you want to stop and discuss some of these roads in more detail. Some of them we can talk about pretty quickly. Others we'll have to have a little bit more in-depth discussion. So we have a section in Adelaide Metcalf, Mulla Ferry Drive. The county is undertaking a road reconstruction on this section of road on behalf of Adelaide Metcalf right now. Very simply, the road volume, the traffic volume is very low, less than 700 vehicles a day. So certainly would fall below the 1,000 AADT criteria. This would fall into a class 4 or class 5 maintenance standard. We anticipate we might see the volume of this on this road grow in the future. But for now, I think that we could safely say that this road could be parked until the next road assumption study is undertaken by the county, and generally every 5 years. Park House Drive, we've looked at this one before. This is from Southwest Middlesex, and Mauro, if you want to offer any commentary on this, please feel free. Again, just a low volume road. It's been on our radar in the past. It certainly is becoming more of an alternative connection across that southwestern part of Middlesex County. It is creeping up. Certainly was much lower last time we looked at it. But again, getting down into that lower MMS classification, we certainly would continue to review this. And, as Glencoe continues to grow, because this is sort of where it would terminate, is down in the village of Glencoe, we may see continued growth along this section of road. So we'll keep an eye on it. Certainly would encourage South Middlesex to have us look at it again. Pratt Siding Road, another sort of lower volume road that we've looked at before. This is a section that runs from Longwoods Road north to Glendon Drive, so another north-south connection down in Southwest Middlesex. Again, it's a good north-south alternative. It's starting to slowly creep up in growth, but again, low traffic volumes on this section of roadway, so we would continue to watch it and monitor it as we see growth continue in the southwest part of the county. Cobbles Hills Road, we'll talk about this one in a little bit more detail, and Michelle can fill us in too if she'd like from a Thames Center perspective. We have looked at this in the past. This is a road that's continuing to grow in volume. We're over 2,000 cars a day now, especially on the south section of this road. From Plover Mills Road to Dundas Street, we're certainly seeing increased growth. This is a boundary road with the township of Zora. Zora is the municipality of the road jurisdiction directly to our east in Oxford County. And, we have looked at this road in the past. So there's a couple of options here we could talk about. Certainly we don't have to decide on things right this second. We can go through. This is certainly one that, might qualify as another geographic connection, north-south. There's quite a distance between. There is a north-south route, airport line in, I think it's 119 in Oxford County, but nothing similar in Middlesex until we get fairly further west into the county. We certainly would have to have a discussion with Zora Township and Oxford County for that matter. We could talk a little bit more about this on the Wayland Line section. But typically when a county assumes jurisdiction over a road on one side of the municipal boundary, the county on the other side also typically decides to bring that road into the county road system. So we would have those conversations with Oxford County and their engineering staff. There's also the option to do this in sections. So we could do the piece from Dundas Street to Plover Mills now and do the piece from Plover Mills to Highway 7 at a later date. There's some challenges with that north piece simply because the intersection at Elginfield and Cobble Hills Road isn't ideal. Elginfield climbs up into a railway overpass in that location. So some of the sight distances there aren't great. We'd have to have a conversation with the MTO, obviously, about improving that intersection. We've had some conversations in the past with them about our concerns with the sight lines there, but it's been a number of years. We certainly would be willing to reignite those conversations. But I'll pause. I saw Ina's hand go up. Please go ahead, Ina.
Sorry, I just wanted a clarification, Chris, if I may. Um, the conversations with the Oxford County and the Township of Zora, those would include also financing and money and how that all works, or is it just straight 50-50, or I don't know how they split their pieces, but it's a more involved. I mean, they have to commit to spending the money too. It's not just, yeah, go ahead and do the road and we'll plow it or something like that.
Yeah, so when we get to boundary roads, at this point, at this stage, just assuming any of the county road system doesn't commit the county or any of the municipalities involved on a boundary road doing any capital work on the road, we would certainly incorporate this road into our boundary agreement. Now, whether that boundary agreement is with Oxford County or with Zora Township, that would enter into this discussion as we move forward into the next stages of the process. But it wouldn't commit anyone to do any particular work on that road. So we would, again, when we looked at our capital planning for the future, we would have a conversation. We would have to work on who does what with regards to maintenance on this road network. So, does the county plow part of it? Do we plow all of it, charge our winter maintenance costs back to Zora Township or Oxford County or vice versa? That conversation still has to happen. In the short term, failing an agreement, if for whatever reason the stars don't align and we can't get something on the books at the same time the county takes jurisdiction, the municipal act would kick in and we would have to share 50-50 on all of our operational costs and then and capital costs. So we would work out a negotiated agreement, but we certainly would just rely on the terms within the municipal act for boundary roads to deal with it in the short term. But again, it would be a further discussion with our municipal partners to the east about how they would want to handle it within their own road networks. Okay, come back to that. This is another boundary road, but a boundary road between two of our local municipalities, Middlesex Center and Thames Center. Again, starting to grow. 1,500 cars a day is not insignificant. This is the piece that runs all the way up from Medway Road all the way up to Perth County. So a big long section, but we already have jurisdiction over the small piece from Elginfield Road to Wayland Line, which is Perth County. This is another piece. So it's, in my opinion, wouldn't qualify for assumption based solely on traffic volume, but the committee could make an argument to assume it based on the fact that it's a boundary road between two local municipalities. Sort of eliminates that boundary partnership between the two local municipalities. The county would wholly be responsible for the road. So there could be some discussion about that inclusive criteria being applied here. Seeing it doesn't quite meet right now, we've set of the 2,000 cars a day or vehicles a day just to automatically include it in the county road system. So we'll come back to this one as well. So there's a couple already that we're going to come back to and discuss in more detail. Prince William Street, again, one that falls well below our criteria for road assumption, only 400 cars a day. So again, another one that runs in North Middlesex in this case. But again, very low at this time. Excuse me, this one's in Lukenbadolf, but one that they want us to keep an eye on in the future. McGuire Road, and I'll have a little conversation about a couple of these roads here. But McGuire Road, again, getting up there in traffic volumes. This one runs from Elginfield up to Mount Carmel Drive. It's all within North Middlesex. And again, this one and this next one, Cassie Road, are very similar. Somewhat similar traffic volumes, somewhat similar pathway to get from north to south in that section of North Middlesex. And I also wanted us to identify that wasn't requested by North Middlesex, specifically Lurie Road, which at one point in time was part of the county road network and was downloaded in the late 90s as part of our comprehensive road review. And maybe I'll go back to the map just so people are aware of what we're talking about here. This is sort of this section of the county where we have a county road, a boundary with Huron County. This is the provincial highway. And then here are some of the road sections would fall within these sort of areas through here. We've just shown the McGuire Road connection from Elginfield all the way up, that little piece of Prince William Street, which yes, I guess is North Middlesex. Apologize. But the team or the committee may want to have a conversation about a north-south connection somewhere in this section, not to exclusively look at any of the roads in particular. I'm sorry, Cassie's wasn't included on this map, but um, do we feel another north-south connection is warranted within North Middlesex? So we will circle back to this one a little bit later as well. A little bit more of an in-depth discussion because I think there are some other options there that we could talk about. Little Woods Drive. We have a fair conversation about this one as well. This is a section of road that, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, that was recently assumed by Middlesex Center. This is a boundary road between the Oneida, the Thames First Nations, and Middlesex Center. There's a small portion of lands that sort of juts into Middlesex Center, or it still exists as part of the municipality, but it juts into the Oneida, the Thames territory. And there's some challenges there that we can talk about the nature of the road and some of the challenges that both the county and Middlesex Center likely both share with the maintenance and ongoing operation of this road section. And mainly because of sort of the lack or likely a lot of the stuff that's kind of happened along this road happened without the knowledge of the municipality. So we have a section of roadway here, as many of you know. We've seen a proliferation in growth within our First Nations to leverage economic benefit by the sale of gasoline, cannabis products, other materials and resources and supplies. And we're seeing a large growth of traffic in and around our First Nations for people who live in the city of London and other areas to come in and utilize those commercial opportunities that happen within our First Nations. So we have a situation where the county certainly, and the municipality as well, would have some control over access, some control over improvements to the road network, where we would make the road safer, make the efficient use of the road better with regards to corridor control. So how we would apply conditions to any type of development in the county, to include things like turning lanes or slip around lanes, to do things to make sure the accesses are narrow and constructed to a good standard, such that we weren't chasing things like degradation of the edge of the road, because it might be a gravel driveway that's seeing a lot of use and potentially a lot of heavy truck use. And then there's also some challenges and some sensitivities as well, I would say, about going in and enforcing some of these rules, even on the side of the road that is wholly within Middlesex Center. So I would like to park this road, although the traffic volumes would make it an inclusive criteria because they are quite high, 3,600 cars a day, as per the last count. But we'd want to do a more in-depth review and have a conversation with Oneida of the Thames just to make sure that we could come in and have some productive working relationship with the businesses that are operating within Middlesex Center. So I've talked about this a little bit with Andrew and Rob and Michael with Middlesex Center about how we can move forward with this. So I'm not saying that committee can not ask the county to assume this road as part of the process, but I think there's some legwork we would like to do in the short term and then reconsider this road. Again, a road assumption isn't exclusive to every 5 years. We have done them in interim basis. So this is one I would like to recommend we park, deal with this sort of sensitive issue, and then move forward with a recommendation outside of this process. But that would be my recommendation on this section of road. Park House Drive. Now you'll see this piece of Park House Drive that runs all the way through Strathroy Caradoc, but we also looked at the piece that runs in Southwest Middlesex. It certainly sees a great fluctuation in the volume of traffic along this section of road. And the small piece that runs between Adelaide Street or Adelaide Road and Glendon Drive has a significantly higher level of traffic. So it's about 700 or so once you get west of Mount Bridges, but between Mount Bridges and the 402, it's over 2,000 cars a day. We have looked at this in the past. There is a small challenge with part of the road not being wholly within the public highway or the public right of way, but the municipality is actively working on correcting that situation. And this would certainly fall into a number of categories that will qualify it for part of the county road network. It's a geographic connection that doesn't really exist. We are seeing more development happen and occur at the south end of Mount Bridges. There's a McDonald's that's in the planning network right now. There's quite a number of homes that are approved for development in the southwest corner of Mount Bridges. So we're going to see additional pressures, and the municipality is going to see additional pressures with regards to the maintenance of this road, especially in the wintertime. So that piece of Park House, they've asked for Melbourne all the way to Glendon. The recommendation would be from Adelaide Road to Glendon Drive, a shorter, much shorter section, but again, a section that has more than double, I would say almost triple the amount of traffic than the rest of Park House Drive. We have McAvoy Road, and again, this one is out in excuse me, in Strathroy, one that's growing in volume. It's been reconstructed by the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. The volumes are still low, but they are growing quite rapidly, about 1,200 cars a day when the last count was completed. This is one that I say would naturally become part of the county road system at some point in the future. What we're typically seeing and what we've seen over the past in Strathroy-Caradoc is traffic growth around the periphery of the town, simply because the traffic in the town is starting to grow to the point where people are avoiding it. So for positive and negative reasons. So, I mean, having large trucks not drive through the center of downtown Strathroy has some advantages, makes it a much more walkable place. It reduces traffic congestion. It promotes those types of commercial vehicles to, use roads, county roads or TIWA roads, which is what they're designed and built for, to access some of their industrial areas, which are generally to the north east of the built up part of the town. So this would make some sense. The volumes are pretty low, but they're growing. So this is one of those fringe cases where if the committee felt it would be reasonable for us to take it at this time, we likely could make that argument. If we wanted to wait 5 years to 2030, it certainly will likely, in my opinion, meet that 2,000 cars plus a day volume criteria in that next 5-year window. So for now, we'll have a discussion, but the recommendation would be this just stays with Strathroy-Caradoc until the next regular road assumption study in 2030. Whalen Line is one that we assumed part of last time. We did this road assumption study in 2020. We have a piece essentially from the Granton line, which is the sort of the north-south connection, next to Mitchell Line, which is a provincial highway, but runs through the village of Granton and Logan-Badolph. We took that connection up to Highway 4. We were seeing a lot of bypass traffic again, trucks, mainly commercial vehicles, using a more direct route, to be honest with you, from Elginfield Road to Highway 4 north of Lucan to head north up into Exeter and places beyond. So we're seeing continued growth on this road. Again, the volumes are low, but there is growing volume on this section of road. And now the county has taken over a piece of it. We've seen it jump from the last time we looked at it. I think it was about 400 or something. So it's doubled, but doubled is, a relatively small scale for the number of total vehicles. So it's one we could look at. I know that Perth County is looking at assuming this into the county road network. They haven't done it as of yet. They know we're talking about it. I would assume that they likely would upload it to the county road network if Middlesex County was considering assuming it on our side of the boundary, but a bit of a chicken and the egg thing. So they may go, I may back to you to say they've assumed it and we should pick it up, or we assume it now and they maybe come and talk to us and say, yeah, now that you've assumed it, we're going to make it part of the county road network. part of the challenge with Whalen Line is it passes through a number of municipalities. It goes across the border between Perth and Huron. So we have Perth County, Huron County, and 2 local municipalities that have been involved in the past. Now we're dealing with Huron County on the piece that's up closer to Highway 4 now, but this is still at the lower tier municipality in Perth County at this stage. So we really think it would be a benefit if the county was a road authority on both sides of that road, just simply because it makes it a little bit easier when you're talking about like capital budget. The scale of the county is certainly, especially in Perth, is certainly sort of more at level from county to county than would be from, county to a local municipality. We would have sort of different thresholds for doing capital programs. So county to county makes things a little bit more straightforward. So this is one we could talk about and we've looked at in the past, but just still stays pretty low with regards to the threshold for total traffic. So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to go back and talk about any of these, but because I did go on there for a little while, just for the committee's discussion. Right now, I think the main candidates would be Cobble Hills Road. We could talk about the whole thing. We could talk about part of it, but Cobble Hills Road is a boundary road at the east limit of the county. I think we could talk about Prospect Hill Road, because it is a boundary road between 2 of our local municipalities. I believe we should have a conversation about a north-south connection in North Middlesex, and which is appropriate, and it doesn't need to be made today, but it was certainly something we could look at and have a discussion about today. And then the piece of Park House from Adelaide Road to Glendon Drive, the section of Whalen Line from Highway 7 to Granton Line. We could talk about McAvoy Road as well, and we should talk about the little piece of Little Woods that runs adjacent to the Oneida Reserve. So happy to go through them one at a time, answer any questions from anyone. I'll put it to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Chris. If we can get that, I'll ask the committee who'd like to start.
And I'll throw the map up for everybody's
Okay.
interest too. Let's zoom out on this again.
So just to give people a couple of minutes, Chris, I'll talk a little bit about in North Middlesex, that's north to south route.
Mhm.
So McGuire Road, that is traffic that normally goes up to Exeter area, and going that way. If you go over to Cassidy and look at that north-south, that is a Grand Bend route. And Ipperwash, that's the difference in the traffic flows in those 2. So it isn't just as simple, it's just sort of a north-south is. And I think the reason McGuire was put in there was to raise awareness to the county how much more traffic is happening, right? How much it's increasing as people get to know it, because it's a great route. And if you go north there, you're going to Airport Road in Huron County. So it's a very direct route to get somewhere to the north. That's why that was put in there. The Prince William one was, I knew there'd be low counts, but we set it in there just because of the connection to the Lucan area, and that is that traffic going there. It's a little lower count than what I even thought it would be, but that's sort of the thinking that was put forward to it. I think even if it's not included at this time, it needs to be on the radar, right? So who wants to speak to it?
Michelle's got her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
Yep, thanks, Brian. In respect to Cobble Hills Road, Chris, can you talk to us about maybe what the pros and cons are with respect to transitioning that assumption, like doing part of it this time and then the next part? I'm just not sure from an operational perspective if there's any pros or cons to that.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I guess for Cobble Hills Road, just the the reason why I would say we would do it in the sections, and you can see the piece from Plover Hills down to Dundas is 2/3, and that would be the last third or even quarter is the Plover Mills up to Highway 7. Part of the challenges with that section would be dealing with the MTO. How do we do that turnaround? How do we maintain that section, especially in the wintertime? The other sections is a little bit easier for us to create loops, right? So part of the consideration is how do we maintain these road networks? So can we loop? Can we split it off? Can we talk to Zora Township or talk to Oxford County about how we might be able to split those off a little bit easier? It makes it a little bit easier for us to put it into the road system. So giving us 5 years to sort of catch up. So we get it into the system. There is we looked at, there's some capital work. Most of these roads would probably move forward in our capital program to be in sort of the 5-year to 10-year range. So it'd get us ahead on some of that capital programming. So could get part of the road rebuilt and then continue to work forward. So in 5 years, we would have most of these roads either in the system already addressed or being ready to be addressed within a capital program, like a prescribed capital program. So it helps us to stage that out a little bit. The other challenge we always have is the total kilometers of road that we would assume in a single road assumption is something we struggle with from time to time. So Caldwell Hills Road is a long road. So being able to take that in a bit of more of a segmented way would allow us to ramp up operations as well. So when we take over some of these road networks, we do have to consider our existing plow routes and our maintenance and our staffing levels, and we have to adjust. So it can be challenging for us to adjust in the short term. But in order for us to sort of stage these things, and especially a long section of road in one municipality in one local area, it is an exceptional additional challenge to us. So those are sort of the reasons why it helps us to stage it in that sense. From a local municipal perspective, again, it just might be an opportunity for us to work with Thames Center in order to prioritize needs within that section. I know that it's a great long stretch of road, which comes with its own unique challenges with regards to speed. And I certainly think there are ways that we can address speed calming, like not physical traffic calming, but ways we can address speed calming along that section of road and improve road safety as we go, as a county road goes, and we can address those in collaboration with Thames Center staff. So I know there's already struggles there, and I have been talking with some of your staff about how we can maybe address some of those things. So there's some advantage in that sense as well for us to kind of stage it in sort of segmented pieces.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That is a good answer, and I'm certainly supportive of the assumption in phases, absolutely. And my other question was, what relationship does the County of Oxford have? But you covered that off, so they have a similar process than what the County of Middlesex does. So that's great. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Is there any other questions? Chris, I can't see the hands going up, so.
Okay, Andrew's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, to you, just a quick question on Prospect Hill Road. I was a little surprised to see it on there originally, so I reached out to our neighbors over in Thames Center to see what their thought process was on putting that forward for consideration. So it was my understanding, just quickly chatting with staff over there, that it was more of a longer term thought to have Prospect Hill on there, that to your point, that the traffic volumes aren't quite there yet, but that they might be there at some point. So with that in mind, I would maybe think about pushing that one off a little bit. Maybe the next cycle, it might make sense to offer that one up for consideration, especially considering the number of roads you have on the list here.
Great, thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Any other questions at this time? Seeing none? All right, we'll move on, Chris.
Okay, so what I would like to do is just get some direction for next steps, and maybe I'll list these off. And Rebecca, I apologize because I am putting you on the hot seat here. I know Marcy was hoping we'd have a recommendation sort of pre-booked or pre-written for this, but certainly what I'm going to recommend, of course, at the behest of the committee, is that Middlesex County staff be directed to move forward with the next steps of consideration of the following roads as part of the county road assumption for 2025. And I'll give you the list of some of the ones I think we've talked about, and we'll just confirm these with the committee at the end here. So we talked about Cobble Hills Road from Dundas Street to Plover Mills Road. We talked about, I'm just giving you the ones I think we would have an easy time to defend. Park House Drive from Adelaide Road to Glendon Drive. We were going to leave off these other ones. Maybe I'll just look to the committee here. So we have Whalen Line. Do we have any concerns about potentially moving forward with the next steps to consider putting out in the county road system? It helps us with the geographic connection. It helps us that we know the traffic there is growing. We do need to discuss it with our partners to the north and east about how it works in with their network. And again, this recommendation is just to get to the next steps. This is not saying these are going to be assumed by the county. As we're going to go through the next iteration that our staff take with our neighbors, especially to deal with the challenges that may arise. So just do we want us to keep Whalen Line on the list, so to say?
Chris,
Yep.
a question?
Yeah, Michelle, sorry.
Sorry,
not-
go ahead.
Not a
Michelle.
question, but I'm supportive of that, absolutely, especially when the county of Perth is looking at taking ownership of that part of the road as well. It just makes sense that the two counties are working together on that.
Okay, so Rebecca, we're gonna say Whalen Line. And I'm glad we're recording because I don't have to talk that slow. You can go back and look at it. Whalen Line from Elginfield Road to Granton Line.
Does that give us all of Wayland Line then? That's
That
county?
would make all of
Okay.
Whalen Line, County Road
Okay, thank you.
55 would run from Highway 4 to Highway 7.
Okay.
I think we talked about the rest of Park House, Pratt Siding, McAvoy, unless somebody wants us to have a look at McAvoy. Ina, you got your hand up. Apologize.
I'm just stopping at McAvoy. Was it McAvoy? Between Adelaide and Glendon? Yes.
Between Adelaide and Park House, between Adelaide and Glendon?
Park House, not McAvoy. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's like a cow path. It's really not, it's gonna need a lot of work, right?
Yeah, so sorry, this is where we get into the next steps, right? So we do a look at the road. Part
Right,
of the
assess-
criteria for uploading is that it's in a state of repair that's to the standards of Middlesex County. Doesn't mean
Okay.
it has to be paved with asphalt and crystal smooth, glass smooth. It just means it has to, if there's deficiencies that are significant, then we would ask for financial contribution from the local municipality. So
Okay.
when we look at it, if there is some capital improvements that need to get made right away, we would estimate and pass that estimate to, in this case, Stratford Caradoc, and they could say yay or nay. They could take care of themselves and come back to us in 5 years. They could say, please, county, take it on, and here's some money. So you could,
Get it.
put it in a capital program for 2026.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Especially with the growth down at that end of it's being used a lot. So, and it's a natural connection as opposed to going to the lights, turning right and going through the school zone and all. Okay, thanks. Got it.
Okay. McAvoy Road, everybody's okay to push that back? Did we want to add that to consideration? Everybody's quiet, we're okay. Now to the word, I know this, I'm not sure how much you want to say, but do we want to do the next step on McGuire?
So I really think it's up for our next in the next term of this. I
Okay.
really think it's more bringing it to light for the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so Rebecca, we got 3 sections of road here, and I guess maybe we'll get I'll read it, and then you can wave at me if I'm on base. So basically, that the County Road and Bridge Assumption Study Committee directs county staff to further the following list of roads for further consideration for assumption into the county road network. And we've got Cobble Hills Road from Dundas Street to Plover Mills Road, Park House Drive from Adelaide Road to Glendon Drive, and Whalen Line from Elginfield Road to Granton Line. And if that's fine, Mr. Chair, we'll just get a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. I don't see Rebecca on my screen, but hopefully she's.
Okay.
And
We have a
just stop
mover for
sharing
that?
for a minute. Here we go.
Sorry, that does
Okay,
sound
thank
good.
you. Do we have a mover for that?
You got Michelle and Morrow on my screen. Brian.
Michelle and Maura. Okay. All in favor? It's carried.
Great. Thank you so much. One last thing we need to talk about here, and I will just share my screen again very briefly and can have this conversation. This is the County Road and Bridge Assumption Study. So we do need to talk about bridges, and this is North Middlesex. There are a list of bridges here, and you can see they're all about the same vintage. Some a little bit older, 1870. So we have 4 bridges here. One with a pretty good traffic volume, over 300 vehicles a day. The other quite less, but all in need of replacement, and all other than the bridge on Adair, which is not that much less of a capital cost, but all in that $2 million range. So at this stage, I'm really just open for us to have a bit of a discussion because at this stage, the county has not assumed a bridge without assuming the connected road network with it. So when we look at those 3 sections, for example, that we're going to take to the next stage, we would look at those road sections to see if there is bridge or culvert work required on those road sections. And if it's of a critical nature, that would become part of a financial compensation package given to the county in order for us to upload the roads. But these would be separate from the county road network. And I would assume, Brian, if you're speaking from the mayor's position on these ones, seeing as they're on North Middlesex, there are challenges with regards to the maintenance and the capital cost of replacing these structures in North Middlesex.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris, especially honestly with the new Ontario Road bridge. If that was a different bridge, to me, it would make more sense that the county would assume the whole, that road from Petty Street out to number 7. It makes sense to me if that were the case. That road there would have certainly a lot more traffic, mostly agriculture traffic, if it was a different bridge. It's really because it is a weight limit bridge. That one there, it would get a lot more traffic on it because it is it would keep, I think the biggest advantage, it would keep some of these larger loads out of the towns and keep them off the county roads. I think that's the biggest advantage to that bridge. The Adair Bridge is a very, very minimal use bridge. It would, from a personal standpoint, I think it would be tough to justify spending that money on that bridge replacement. What was the other ones in there? I'm sorry, it was, the Springbank Bridge. Mooresville Bridge.
Drive.
It's kind of the same way, as far as traffic and how much it's used. It's used a little more and a little more variety of traffic on that one. But the other one, the Springbank Bridge, there's some work there to do to straighten that road out. If you know it, Chris, it kind of angles across on the bridge, and that is a bridge that we are going to have to replace. That is a bridge that we do have to. That's definitely a connecting bridge. And I'm not saying no to the other ones. I'm just saying that one there for sure has to be kept going. And so that's just comments to those bridges. But it is, as Chris, as you know, and some of you others know, we could give you another 30. We could add another 30 bridges to that list. We have a lot of bridges in North Middlesex, but that's just part of the ensemble meandering through our community. But I'm wondering, Chris, what were the, like the county has bridges on our roads now. What was the criteria at that time for a span on a lower tier road to be a county bridge? How did that come about?
Yeah, that goes back to amalgamation. So when all of our many municipalities amalgamated into the municipalities we have today, at the time, the council decided that those bridges that were on those boundary roads would be under the state, go to the jurisdiction of the county, just because it was who does what on those boundary roads. So pre-amalgamation, those roads were local roads, but the county maintained the bridges on all the boundary roads. So they just stayed with the county, even though the roads kind of become encapsulated within their own municipality. The county continued to have jurisdiction over those structures. So those are sort of legacy bridges. We talked briefly about it in the previous road assumption when we added the bridges in for that discussion, because there are so many ways we could deal with that type of infrastructure. Whether those had to go back to the local municipalities, but to be honest, a lot of those structures don't see salt, so they tend to hold up a lot longer. That's why you have bridges on your road network, Brian, that are from the 1890s and 1870s, because they haven't been hammered with salt, so that they haven't corroded to the point where they're load limited for sure, because they were never designed for today's traffic. But they have the benefit of being on gravel roads or lower volume roads. So you don't hammer them with as much salt as we have to hit our main lines and our tow road networks with, which is the primary reason why a lot of these bridges deteriorate faster than we normally expect them to, because of the extreme damage that corrosion does to our structures.
And I would say, putting on my county council hat, it's a tough one to take over. It is a very tough one to take over. There's no question. And it isn't lost on our residents here in our municipality how much work the county has done in our municipality with bridges that were county bridges, but on our roads over the last 20 years. Very much so. The Blacks Bridge, of course, comes to mind, right? That's a $4.5 million bridge that the county's done. Now, we did another one on Beechwood Road, same thing, $4.5 million bridge. And everything that we have across the Salvo River, because of the way the banks are and stuff, they're expensive bridges.
They're big structures.
Yeah, they are. So, and I don't know, I'm sure we all have some of that. I know Middlesex Center does for sure. And, but we put them out there. I think it's, again, more for information and for county. You, I know, are aware of it, but I think for others to be more aware of it too.
Mauro, do you had a question? You had your hand up for a second. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Just, is it common for the county to assume bridges that aren't within a county road?
We've never done it.
Okay.
We've never done it. Like I say, the ones on local roads are legacy structures that we've had jurisdiction over for decades, but the roads just went from being boundary roads to being wholly encapsulated with the municipality. So yeah, we haven't taken up any roads. I will say that one of the benefits of this discussion in the past has been things like the countywide bridge inventory study that got funded, I would say, directly because of the conversations around this table, where we just didn't know what was out there, and weren't comparing apples to apples. You had a bunch of different consultants looking at bridges. We had county staff looking at our bridges, and there was 2 or 3 local consultants who were looking at everyone else's structures. So we weren't really knowing exactly what was out there. So we do now have a pretty comprehensive, and I think many municipalities are pretty envious of what we have, which is, our sort of our bridge Bible. It's a few years old. We are getting it updated with some new numbers, just to have a sort of a high level capital idea of what it will cost us to replace the whole system, and sort of what our ongoing maintenance needs are on sort of a predictive basis. But those types of things. Some of the stuff from years past where, again, we toyed with the idea of county doing inspections on all the structures across the whole county. We've toyed a bit with county taking on sort of major capital programs in like a bridge bundling, infrastructure bundling type idea, where we would take a sort of a geographic region and do 20 bridges. So like those types of ideas have kind of sparked out of this. Whether or not it's something where, and there's always a possibility that at some point council just says county should just look after structures over 3 meters, and like there should be county responsibility, county capital. And there's lots of challenges and discussions around how that would actually work. So it really, the idea that the reason, I guess, why we keep this now into this discussion about the assumption study is just so we can continue to have those kind of creative ideas and get a group of people together to talk about this when there's not really another forum for us to do that.
No, I agree with you. And I think there would be some challenges with the municipality having authority over the road and the county having authority over the bridge, right? There would be definitely be some challenges there.
I mean, it's the same as it is now, more with the 400 series highways. So when we have an overpass over the highway, it's the same as with our local municipalities where they have a road that's kind of goes over a county bridge. The municipalities are responsible for the maintenance of the surface, the wearing surface of the bridge, and all the works associated with the road itself. And then the county takes care of the structure. So it's the same with the MTO. We'll patch potholes, we'll line paint over the center of the bridge, we'll look at all that sort of thing. But if it's anything to do with the bridge itself, that goes back to the Ministry of Transportation, and the same relationship here. So from an operational side, it's not a huge challenge because there's pretty clear division of who does what. But from a capital side, that's where things get very interesting and very expensive and very challenging. And there's lots of pros and cons each way. And there's such a disparity between our local municipalities in the needs and demands of their bridge infrastructure. I mean, Brian's probably on the worst end of it. He has got a lot of the biggest structures in this county. It's nice to have a lot of riverside property, but it all necessitates these very, very large bridges. And a lot of those bridges are 100+ years old, and there's going to be some significant challenges. Whereas in Thames Center, Michelle, you guys aren't too bad. You get 45 structures. Most sort of small rigid frame. You have a few big guys, but your bridge infrastructure is of a scale where it would be a smaller impact to Thames Center. The benefit to North Middlesex to have the county take over would be massive. Strathroy, same. I think they have 12 structures or something. So there's really a disparity there between how much infrastructure each of our local municipalities maintains and oversees.
But Chris, I think what I like about adding the bridges into it, it creates conversation and possibly solutions, right? Talking with more conversation, as you know, and partnering not necessarily in capital costs, but it could be in grant applications, it can be in other things. I think that's why I really like the bridges being on it, to be honest.
Yeah, and just as a final note on the bridges, Mr. Chair, and I think the staff here, Andrew and Morrow, know, and I'm sure Ryan and Michelle have had the experience as well. The county continues to offer bridge services to all of our local municipalities. We do small to medium-sized bridge rehabilitation projects, which we undertake with county staff. We do have in-house expertise, Ryan and his team, with regards to bridge inspections. We have in-house procurement now, so Josh and his team helping us put together capital tenders, managing those contracts, and working with RFPs for consultants. So we are very, very happy to partner with local municipalities. And I think I've sort of said before on the record, we're about 30 to 35% cheaper than going through the private sector, just because we are a public entity and we provide these services at cost. And we don't have to go through a procurement process, which saves you quite a bit just off the top end. So just a reminder that we're here and we're always happy to provide assistance in any shape or form that we can.
If there's no other comments on the bridges, correspondence and information.
I
Oh,
just
Rebecca,
wanted to ask if you wanted to receive that for information,
Okay.
just for the bridges part.
Sure.
okay, thank you. Motion to receive that for information. Michelle, seconded by Ina, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, correspondence and information items. Is there, I don't see any correspondence on it. Anything, inquiries, anything you want to add? Anyone? Seeing nothing? Next meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, give Ryan and I a little bit of time. We'll be out to talk to the local roads officials. So we'll be out to talk to Jared Craven and Jeff Little and Walter Easter from those respective municipalities, and then our neighbors in Oxford County, Zora Township, and Perth, Perth South and Perth County. And then our staff, once we get the ice and snow off of these roads, to have a really close look at things. So I would assume we would have another meeting probably in April. That would give us enough time to get this together. And then our typical recommendation is the roads get assumed into the county network in July. So it gives us time to pass our bylaws in June or in July, for that matter, for us to assume these roads as part of the county road network. And then again, have these agreements with local municipalities if there are additional requirements with regards to funding some short-term capital improvements. And then the agreement to pay for 1 year of road maintenance for the sections that are proposed to be assumed by the county. But late March, early April sort of time frame for this.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, just need to move to adjourn. Michelle? Who was it?
Morrow.
Oh, it was Morrow. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, sorry, Morrow. All right,
Great.
thanks.
Thanks,
Adjourn. Have a
everyone.
good afternoon, everyone. Stay warm, Ina.